Being too nice often comes from fear of rejection, not genuine kindness. Many people don't realize this truth until they've lived years of trying to keep everyone else happy while quietly losing themselves in the process. On the surface, it may look like kindness, it may look like generosity, it may even look like humility, but deep inside, it's not kindness driving the behavior, it's fear. Fear that if you say no, someone won't like you. Fear that if you disappoint others, you'll be abandoned. Fear that if you don't give people what they want, you'll no longer be seen as valuable. This fear of rejection is subtle but powerful. It makes you overextend yourself, agree to things you don't believe in, and stay silent when you should be speaking up. It teaches you to compromise your peace just to avoid conflict. And little by little, it begins to chip away at your identity. You start to measure your worth by how well you've pleased others, forgetting that your value was never meant to be defined by their approval. Think about how many times you've said yes when you really wanted to say no, not because it was right, not because it was what your heart desired, but because you didn't want someone to be upset with you. That is not kindness. That is fear controlling your decisions. And when fear leads, exhaustion follows. You become tired not just in your body, but in your soul. Because living to avoid rejection is a heavy burden, one that was never meant to be carried. When your niceness is rooted in fear, it doesn't even feel like kindness anymore. True kindness is free. It flows from love, strength, and a genuine heart. But niceness that comes from fear feels forced. It feels like you're trapped, like you're wearing a mask you can't take off. You smile when you want to cry. You agree when you want to resist. You give when you have nothing left to give. And even when people praise you for being so sweet or selfless, deep inside you know you're not giving from a place of freedom. You're giving from a place of fear. The tragedy is that the people who benefit from this fear-driven niceness rarely see the cost. They don't see the sleepless nights. They don't feel the knot in your chest when you silence your voice. They don't know the tears you cry behind closed doors. They just keep taking because fear has trained you to keep giving. But here's the truth: being too nice is not kindness. It's self-abandonment. It's choosing everyone else's comfort over your own soul. And that pattern cannot continue forever. At some point, the weight becomes unbearable. At some point, the fear begins to suffocate you. And the only way to break free is to confront it. To admit that your niceness isn't always kindness. It's a defense mechanism, a survival tactic, a way of avoiding rejection. What you need to know is that rejection is not the enemy. Rejection will not destroy you. In fact, rejection can reveal who truly values you and who only values what you can give. When you stop fearing rejection, you stop giving away your power. You begin to see that your worth is not dependent on how many people approve of you, but on the unshakable truth that you already have value. Real kindness is strong enough to set boundaries. Real kindness can say no when necessary. Real kindness does not come from fear, it comes from confidence. And confidence is born when you no longer let rejection hold you hostage. So when you feel that urge to please just to avoid disapproval, pause and ask yourself, am I being kind or am I being fearful? If it's kindness, it will feel free, joyful, and true. If it's fear, it will feel heavy, forced, and exhausting. One brings life, the other drains it, and the choice is always yours. The day you choose courage over fear is the day you stop being too nice and start being truly kind. People pleasing robs you of identity and leaves you emotionally drained. It sounds harmless at first, almost admirable, to want to keep everyone happy. We are told that being agreeable, cooperative, and accommodating makes us good people. But when pleasing others becomes the foundation of your life, it starts to strip away who you truly are. You begin to bend yourself into shapes that don't belong to you, molding your words, your actions, even your dreams, around what others expect of you. And little by little, the real you fades into the background. When your sense of worth is tied to someone else's approval, you no longer live for yourself. You live for them. You start asking questions in your mind before making decisions. Will they be okay with this? Will they get upset? Will they still like me if I say no? And in the process, you silence your own voice. You stop asking yourself what you need, what you value, and what you actually want. Instead of living out of authenticity, you perform for acceptance, and that performance is exhausting. Every yes that doesn't come from your heart steals a little bit of your energy. Every smile you wear to cover discomfort drains you just a little more. Every time you bite your tongue instead of speaking truth, you feel yourself shrink inside. Over time, that shrinking becomes so normal that you forget what it feels like to stand tall. You wake up tired, not just from lack of sleep, but from the weight of carrying everyone else's expectations on your shoulders. The danger is that pleasing feels good in the short term. When you say yes, when you sacrifice your time, when you bend over backwards to keep the peace, people praise you. They call you kind, dependable, loyal, selfless. And for a moment, it feels good to be needed, but that praise doesn't last, because soon enough, someone will need something else from you, and you'll say yes again, even if it costs you more than you can give. And the cycle continues, approval for a moment, exhaustion for a lifetime. You may even notice resentment beginning to build inside. You give and give, but deep down, you wonder, when will someone finally see me? When will someone ask how I'm doing? When will someone care enough to give back? But here's the painful truth. When you train people to see you as the one who always bends, they rarely stop to notice when you're breaking. That's not because they're all selfish. It's because you've never given them a reason to believe you need protecting. You've built your identity around being the strong giver, the dependable helper, the one who always says yes. And now, even when you want to cry out for help, you don't know how. The cost of people pleasing is not just exhaustion, it's the loss of your identity. You stop recognizing yourself. You forget what you actually enjoy, what truly excites you, what genuinely matters to your soul. Because for so long, your choices have been shaped around others, not around the truth of who you are. And if you're not careful, you can spend years living a life that looks good to others but feels empty to you. But there is a way forward. It begins with reclaiming your voice. It begins with realizing that no is not a rejection. It is a declaration of value. Saying no does not make you unkind. It makes you honest. It makes you free. It allows you to pour into others from a place of fullness, not emptiness. Because when your giving comes from identity instead of fear, it restores life instead of draining it. People may resist at first. They may not understand why the person who always said yes is suddenly setting boundaries. They may even accuse you of being selfish or cold. But remember this, protecting your identity is not selfish. It is necessary. You cannot truly love others if you have abandoned yourself in the process. When you break free from people pleasing, you rediscover the person you were always meant to be. You find your strength, your clarity, your joy. You no longer live in the shadow of approval. You live in the light of authenticity, and it is there, in that light, that you finally feel alive again. The day you stop pleasing people to keep peace is the day you begin to live in peace yourself. True kindness has boundaries. Niceness without limits invites exploitation. At first, that might sound surprising, because most of us were raised to believe that kindness means giving endlessly, serving without question, and never saying no. But that is not the essence of kindness. That is the distortion of it. Real kindness is rooted in wisdom, and wisdom understands that without boundaries, even good intentions can destroy you. Think about this. Water is life, giving, but when it floods without barriers, it causes devastation. In the same way, kindness without boundaries becomes destructive, both to you and to the people you are trying to help. It teaches others to expect without gratitude, to take without consideration, to demand without respect. Not because they are inherently cruel, but because you have trained them to believe that your niceness has no limits. And once people become accustomed to unlimited access to your time, your energy, and your emotions, they will rarely stop to ask how much it costs you to give it. True kindness, on the other hand, knows where to draw the line. It understands that love does not mean self. neglect, and generosity does not mean self-erasure. It recognizes that boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the very framework that makes love sustainable. When you set boundaries, you are not saying, "I don't care about you." You are saying, "I care about you, but I also care about myself." And that balance is what keeps kindness authentic. When you live without boundaries, you eventually find yourself drained and resentful. You give until you are empty, and then you wonder why you feel invisible, unappreciated, or even used. But the truth is, others can only exploit what you allow. If you constantly say yes, if you constantly make yourself available, if you constantly ignore your own needs for the sake of someone else's comfort, people will accept it as normal. And once they do, they will keep taking, not because they are malicious, but because you have created an expectation that you will never stop giving. That's why niceness without limits is dangerous. It creates an unspoken contract where you do all the sacrificing and others do all the receiving. It silences your voice, depletes your strength, and leaves you feeling unseen. And worst of all, it convinces you that this is what kindness is supposed to look like. But it's not. That is not kindness. It is exploitation dressed as virtue. Real kindness looks different. Real kindness says, "I will give to you, but not at the expense of my soul." Real kindness says, "I will help you, but I will not allow myself to be harmed in the process." Real kindness says, "I will walk with you, but I cannot carry you." That is the power of boundaries. They protect not only your heart, but also the integrity of your kindness. And let's be honest, when you set boundaries, some people won't like it. They may call you selfish, cold, or unkind. But that reaction often comes from those who benefited most from your lack of boundaries. They are not upset because you are being unkind. They are upset because your kindness is no longer unlimited. And that is not your problem to fix. Your responsibility is not to make everyone happy. Your responsibility is to protect your peace and give in a way that is healthy, honest, and sustainable. The beautiful thing is that when you finally establish boundaries, the people who truly value you will rise to the surface. They will respect your no as much as they respect your yes. They will honor your time, your energy, and your heart because they understand that your kindness is not weakness. It is strength guided by wisdom. And those are the relationships that thrive, because they are built on mutual respect rather than silent exploitation. So don't be afraid to draw the line. Don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to protect the space where your soul can breathe. Because without boundaries, your niceness will always be taken for granted. But with boundaries, your kindness becomes powerful, life, giving, and enduring. The day you learn that kindness requires boundaries is the day your love becomes real, strong, and free. Saying no is not cruelty. It is self-respect and wisdom in action. For many of us, those two little letters feel like the hardest words to speak. We've been trained to believe that saying yes makes us good, saying yes makes us likable, saying yes makes us valuable. And so, we grow up afraid of what might happen if we dare to refuse. We picture disappointment in someone's eyes, anger in their voice, rejection in their silence. And out of fear, we keep saying yes, even when every part of us is screaming no. But let's be honest. How many times has your yes left you exhausted? How many times have you agreed to something, only to walk away resentful, drained, or even angry at yourself? That is the cost of refusing to say no. You may avoid disappointing someone else, but in the process, you disappoint yourself. And if you do it long enough, you stop recognizing your own needs altogether. You train yourself to believe that everyone else's comfort matters more than your peace, your time, and your well-being. That is not kindness. That is self-betrayal. The truth is, saying no is not cruel. It does not mean you are selfish, cold, or unkind. In fact, saying no is often the most loving thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. Because when you live in constant yes, your giving comes from a place of depletion, not abundance. You stretch yourself thin, you neglect your own needs, and eventually, you have nothing left to give. But when you say no where it matters, you protect your strength, you preserve your energy, and you create space to say yes from a place of honesty, joy, and freedom. Saying no is also wisdom. It's understanding that not every opportunity is yours to take, not every request is yours to fulfill, not every burden is yours to carry. Sometimes no is what allows someone else to grow, to take responsibility, to step into their own strength. When you say yes to everything, you may unintentionally enable weakness in others, carrying what they were meant to carry for themselves. But when you say no, you honor their ability to rise, while honoring your own limits at the same time. And here's something important. People who truly value you will not stop loving you because you said no. They will not withdraw their respect or abandon you for having boundaries. In fact, they will learn to trust you more because your yes will actually mean something. When you stop handing out yes out of fear and begin offering it with intention, it becomes a genuine gift rather than an empty obligation. Of course, not everyone will react well to your no. Some may try to guilt you, manipulate you, or make you feel like you're letting them down. But often, that reaction comes from those who have grown comfortable with your lack of boundaries. They aren't upset because you're unkind. They're upset because you've stopped allowing yourself to be used. And that's not your burden to carry. Their discomfort is simply proof that your boundaries are working. Learning to say no may feel uncomfortable at first. It may feel foreign, even painful, because for so long, you've tied your identity to pleasing others. But the more you practice it, the more you'll realize how freeing it is. No creates space in your life for the things that truly matter. No gives you the ability to protect your health, your relationships, your dreams, and your peace of mind. No allows you to honor your own value, instead of constantly sacrificing it for the sake of temporary approval. When you finally embrace no, you begin to understand that it is not rejection, it is direction. Every no you give to something that drains you becomes a yes to something that fills you. Every no to manipulation becomes a yes to dignity. Every no to exhaustion becomes a yes to rest. Every no to fear becomes a yes to freedom. So don't let guilt trick you into believing that no is cruelty. It is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is self-respect in action. It is wisdom expressed in two simple letters. And when you learn to use it with courage, you discover that no is not the end of kindness. It is the beginning of truth. The day you understand that no is love wrapped in wisdom is the day you finally begin to live free. Strength and confidence inspire respect, while excessive niceness breeds manipulation. This is a reality many of us struggle to accept, because we often believe that the more agreeable we are, the more others will value us. We convince ourselves that if we bend far enough, smile wide enough, and give endlessly, people will treat us with care and gratitude. But over time, we learn a painful truth. Excessive niceness doesn't win respect, it invites exploitation. Instead of being valued, we become used. Instead of being honored, we are taken for granted. And while we keep hoping that our sacrifices will earn love, they often only attract people who see us as easy to manipulate. The reason for this is simple. People respect what is strong, what is firm, what stands its ground. When you show confidence, when you walk with clarity, when you refuse to compromise your worth, others are forced to acknowledge it. They may not always like it, but they recognize it, and recognition breeds respect. On the other hand, when you constantly surrender your voice just to avoid conflict, when you silence your needs so others can stay comfortable, you unintentionally teach people that your boundaries don't matter. And once they believe that, they will keep pushing, taking, and demanding, because your niceness has shown them they can. Strength does not mean arrogance, and confidence does not mean cruelty. They are not about towering over others or shutting them down. True strength is quiet but unshakable. It is the ability to say no without apology, to stand firm without fear, to remain calm when others try to shake you. Confidence is the assurance that you don't need to perform for approval, that you don't need to prove your value through endless sacrifice. It is knowing who you are and refusing to let others define you by how much you give. People often mistake niceness for kindness, but they are not the same. Niceness is about appearances. It wants to be liked, accepted, approved. It bends in the moment to avoid discomfort. Kindness, on the other hand, is rooted in strength. It speaks truth even when it's uncomfortable. It says no when it needs to, and yes when it means it. Kindness does not fear rejection because it is anchored in confidence. Niceness seeks validation. Kindness flows from self-respect, and the difference between the two determines whether you are respected or manipulated. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they aren't the ones who always gave in, who never said no, who lived their lives trying to make everyone else happy. The people you admire are strong, clear, confident. They inspire respect because they know their value and walk in it. You don't look at them and think they're so nice. You look at them and think they're so strong, so real, so grounded. And that's the kind of presence you were created to have. But here's the challenge. When you've lived a life of excessive niceness, stepping into strength can feel like stepping into danger. You worry people won't like you anymore. You fear being labeled harsh, selfish, or uncaring. Yet the truth is, people who only loved your niceness never really loved you. They loved what your niceness gave them: compliance, convenience, control. The moment you show strength, those same people may resist. But the ones who truly care for you will not leave. In fact, they will respect you more. Strength and confidence don't push people away. They filter the wrong ones out. They protect your life from manipulators who only seek to use you. And at the same time, they draw the right people closer, the ones who honor you, respect you, and value you for who you truly are. This is why stepping into confidence is not only about protecting yourself, it's also about building healthier, stronger relationships. So if you've been living as the nice one, always bending, always giving, always staying quiet to keep the peace, it's time to ask yourself, has it earned you respect, or has it left you feeling unseen and used? The answer is almost always clear. Excessive niceness never creates the life you want. It only creates change you can't see. But strength and confidence, they free you. They lift your head. They allow you to walk into a room without apology, without fear, without the burden of proving your worth. And when you live that way, people can't help but respect you. The day you choose strength over excessive niceness is the day you stop being manipulated and start being truly respected. Living with courage, clarity, and boundaries frees you to walk in your true worth. So many people go through life feeling small, overlooked, or undervalued, not because they aren't strong or capable, but because they have given away their strength one compromise at a time. They've learned to live in fear, afraid of rejection. They've allowed confusion to blur their sense of self, never quite knowing where they end and others begin. And they've let people cross line after line, convincing themselves that to love others means to erase themselves. But the truth is, without courage, clarity, and boundaries, you can never fully step into the worth that was already inside you. Courage is where it begins. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward in spite of it. Living with courage means being willing to speak when silence would be easier, to stand firm when compromise would win approval, to walk away when staying would keep everyone else happy, but destroy you in the process. Courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and calm. It is saying no with a gentle firmness. It is choosing honesty over pretense. It is standing tall even when your knees shake. Without courage, your worth stays hidden, buried under the weight of fear. But with courage, your worth begins to shine, and others can't help but see it. Clarity is equally important. When you lack clarity, you live in confusion, always doubting yourself, always questioning your decisions, always measuring your value through the eyes of others. But clarity clears the fog. Clarity tells you who you are and what you stand for. It reminds you that your worth is not up for debate. When you know what you believe, when you know what matters to you, when you know what lines you will not cross, suddenly life feels lighter. You no longer spend endless energy trying to guess what others want from you, because you already know what you want for yourself, and that confidence radiates. People sense it. They may not always agree with you, but they will respect the fact that you know who you are. Then there are boundaries. Without them, all the courage and clarity in the world will eventually be drained away. Boundaries protect your worth. They are the invisible lines that say, "This is me, and this is where I end. This is what I can give, and this is what I cannot." Boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. They are gates that allow healthy love in while keeping manipulation, disrespect, and control out. When you set boundaries, you are not pushing people away. You are teaching them how to value you. And the people who truly care will not resist those boundaries. They will respect them. When courage, clarity, and boundaries come together, something powerful happens. You begin to walk in your true worth. You no longer shrink to fit into places you've outgrown. You no longer silence your voice for the sake of peace that isn't real. You no longer hand out your time, your energy, or your heart like they are worthless scraps. Instead, you rise into the fullness of who you are. You realize that your worth was never in your ability to please others. It was in the strength, the wisdom, and the love you carry within you, and living in that worth is freeing. It feels like taking a deep breath after years of suffocation. It feels like looking in the mirror and finally recognizing yourself again. It feels like walking into relationships, workplaces, and opportunities without fear of being too much or not enough. Because you know your value does not depend on anyone's approval. It was there all along, waiting for you to claim it. The world does not need you to be endlessly nice, constantly agreeable, or permanently available. The world needs you to be whole, and wholeness is found in courage, in clarity, and in boundaries that protect the treasure of who you are. The day you choose to live with courage, clarity, and boundaries is the day you finally step into the freedom of your true worth. You are never called to live small, silent, or endlessly agreeable. You are called to live strong, wise, and free. When you stop people pleasing, set boundaries, and embrace courage, you step into the confidence of your true worth. So walk boldly, with clarity and strength, and never forget. Kindness with wisdom is power that cannot be broken.